Hello everyone, today we are going to discuss about the kingdom classification, the 5 and 6 kingdom classification. Great. Now let's first look at the 5 kingdom classification. So the 5 kingdom classification was given by R.H. Whitaker in the year 1969. Now see, all the dates that are given in NCERT are really very important. So always memorize the dates that are given in the NCERT. Here R.H. Whitaker's 5 kingdom classification was given in the year 1969. This time he introduced a new kingdom called the fungi. Now see, from the beginning kingdom Protista is doing the same function. All the organisms that cannot be clear-cut placed under plants or animals are placed under Protista. Now Whitaker said that there will be 5 kingdoms, those 5 kingdoms will evolve from each other. So there will be the 5 kingdoms which will evolve from each other. Now first he kept all the primitive organisms in the kingdom Monera. So in Monera there were all the primitive organisms. The old ancient organisms which were placed in Monera, and from there protists are evolved. After Protista, the evolution was divided, or we can say spread into 3 kingdoms, which were Plantae, Fungi and Animalia. Now let's move forward and see the characteristics on which the 5 kingdom classification was based, and how and due to which features Whitaker divided this classification. Now there is an important table from NCERT in the 5 kingdom classification which you can see on the screen. Let's start with the number 1 feature, which is the cell type. Now this is known for all the kingdoms. So as you can see, in Monera the cell type is prokaryotic, while in Protista it's eukaryotic, Fungi it's eukaryotic, Plantae it's eukaryotic, and Animalia it's eukaryotic. So as you can see, apart from Monera, all the other kingdoms have eukaryotic cell. They are all eukaryotic organisms. The question is, what are prokaryotic organisms or prokaryotic cells? Now the cells which do not have any any membrane bound organelles, those are called the prokaryotic cells. So the prokaryotic cells do not have a membrane bound organelles, while all the other organisms which have a eukaryotic cell do have these membrane bound organelles. Now the second feature or the second characteristics, which is the cell wall. Now cell wall may be present or absent, but the main thing is that the cell wall can be made up of different components. So here what we are focusing on is the composition of cell wall. So in Monera, the cell wall is made up of polysaccharide and amino acid. So as you can see, it is made from polysaccharide and amino acids, which is nothing but peptidoglycan, in which peptido is the protein part, means amino acid, and glycan is the sugar part, means polysaccharide. That means Monera cell wall is made up of peptidoglycan, or in other words, we can say it's a non-cellulosic wall. In Protista, the cell wall is made up of cellulose, but it is not important that all the protists will have it. But if they do have it, it will be made up of cellulose. So everyone to please understand, in Protista, cell wall can be present or can be absent, but if it is present, it will be made out of cellulose. Next, in Fungi, the cell wall is always present, but it is not made up of cellulose. It is made of chitin. As you can see, in Fungi, the cell wall is always present and it is made up of chitin. In Plantae, in the plants, the cell wall is present always and it is made up of cellulose, while in Animalia, cell wall is altogether absent. The next characteristic is the nuclear membrane. Now, which is clear when we have seen the cell type. It is clear that only in Monera, the nuclear membrane is absent. Why? Because it is a prokaryotic cell, and as we already know, prokaryotic cells do not have membrane bound organelles. Therefore, it is absent, the nuclear membrane is absent in Monera, while it is present in all the other kingdoms, which is Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. Now let's move forward to the next characteristics, which is the body organization. Now the body organization in Monera, it itself means single cell. So here Monera as the word itself means single. And as you can see, the body organization in Monera is cellular. So this means the organization of all the organisms in Monera is up to cell level only. That is why it is a cellular organization. Similarly, in Protista, the organization is only at cell level. That means the cellular body organization is also present in Protista. But when we move forward to fungus, the fungi kingdom, the body organization is a little bit complex. Now the organisms have many cells, means it is a multicellular organism. But the tissue formation is not properly evolved, or you can say it is not properly developed. So the tissues are loosely, are loosely tied together. This means that in fungi, the tissue are loose. Now when we move to the plantae system, in the plantae kingdom, a proper tissue system has been formed, rather organs have been formed. So in plants, there is a proper tissue and organ body organization. In Animalia, there is a proper organ system that has been formed. Cells have made tissues, tissues together have made organs, and organs together have made an organ system. So the most developed body organization is found in Animalia. The next characteristic is the mode of nutrition. Now this means that the organisms have different modes of nutrition in different kingdoms. Here the most diversity can be found in the kingdom Monera. As you will see, in the kingdom Monera, there is the maximum diversity in the mode of nutrition. There is autotrophic, and there is heterotrophic, chemosynthetic, photosynthetic, and in many more ways, in many more modes of nutrition in the kingdom Monera. In Protista, as you can see, there is only autotrophic and heterotrophic, and even in autotrophic, there is only one division, which is the photosynthetic. Now what differentiates the autotrophic organisms in Monera to Protista are, then in Monera, we also have chemosynthetic. This means that they will also break down chemicals in order to form food. Now let's move to fungi. In fungi, there are only heterotrophic organisms, and they can be either saprophytic or parasitic. Saprophytic are the ones who feed on dead organic matter, while parasitic are the ones who feed on living organic matter. In the plantae kingdom, all of them are autotrophic as they produce their food through photosynthesis. Well, when we move to the kingdom Animalia, it is a heterotrophic mode of nutrition, so they do not make their own food and rely on other matters for food. And it can be of two types, holozoic or saprophytic. See, the thing about holozoic is, in holozoic, the digestion is taking place inside your body, which means the animal engulfs the food and divided inside the body into simpler ones. And this is what we call the holozoic mode of nutrition. While in other modes of nutrition, the breakdown happens outside of the body. This is a major difference between holozoic mode of nutrition and other modes of nutrition. In the NCERT, after this entire table, there is a paragraph in which it is written for Whittaker's classification. The characteristics are: number 1, thallus organization. So number 1 is thallus organization. Number 2 is reproduction. Number 2 is reproduction. And number 3 is phylogenetic analysis. Number 3 is our phylogenetic analysis. Okay, great. See, now you will be thinking that it is not right because in the table the characteristics are different and in the paragraph the characteristics are different. But fundamentally it is not wrong. It is actually correct because all of these characteristics were also considered while classifying the 5 kingdom classification. Since phylogenetic analysis was also used, it was also considered in the 5 kingdom classification. And that is the main reason that this classification system is widely accepted even in present. Now let's move forward to the 6th kingdom classification, or we can also call it the 3-domain classification. Now the 3-domain classification or the 6th kingdom classification was given by Carl Woese. Now, who said that there is another term known as domain in his classification? Now, if you clearly remember when we were talking about taxonomic hierarchies, when we did this mnemonics that keep pots clean, otherwise family gets sick. So we did it like kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus and species. And we always assume that kingdom would be at the highest one, so kingdom is the biggest classification. But as if you remember, we also talked about in that video that there is also one thing above kingdom, which is domain. Although it has not been put under the taxonomic hierarchies yet, but it is present. And this kingdom classification is also called the 3-domain classification. So here we are going to talk a lot more about domains instead of kingdoms. Now what he did was that he divided the Monera kingdom. So he divided first the Monera kingdom into two. One was Eubacteria and one was Archaebacteria. In the Eubacteria, he put the unicellular prokaryotics, and also in Archaebacteria, he put the unicellular prokaryotic. But what was the basic difference is that in Archaebacteria, it contains all the ancient bacteria. In Archaebacteria, it contains all the ancient bacteria. Now he classified Eubacteria and Archaebacteria both as a kingdom and a domain. Now the third domain was also found, which was called as Eukarya. The third domain was Eukarya, and it was formed with the amalgamation of all the rest of the 4 kingdoms, which are Plantae, Animalia, Fungi and Protista, as all of them are eukaryotic organisms. So as you can see, Eukarya is one of the biggest domains of all the 3. Now the important thing was that all of this classification was based on 16 srRNA gene sequence of the organisms. Actually, he said that all the organisms, let it be Eubacteria, Archaebacteria or Eukarya, all of them have evolved from a common ancestor. So it can something look like this, that there is that particular cell, and out of this 3 domains have formed basically. One is Eubacteria, one is Archaebacteria, and the third one is Eukarya. So he believed that all of these organisms have evolved from a common ancestor, from a common cell, and that cell is known as progenote. Now the progenote is the ancestor of all the organisms that we are now, of all the kingdoms. All of it has evolved from a single cell, that is called progenote. Great. And now this sums up our 6 kingdom classification. Now let's look at some of the questions. So here it states, in the 5 kingdom classification, Chlamydomonas and Chlorella have been included in. Now it is very important to understand that Chlamydomonas and Chlorella both are actually algae. And in this 6th kingdom or in the latest classification, they might be placed at any point, but here we are asking about the 5 kingdom classification. The 5 kingdom classification, which was given by R.H. Whittaker in 1969. Now if we talk about this 5 kingdom classification, he put Chlamydomonas and Chlorella in the it was included in the kingdom Protista. So here the correct answer would be option A, Protista. In the next question, it again says, in the 5 kingdom system, the main basis of classification is. So we are talking about only the 5 kingdom classification. So here the main basis of classification is. Let's look at each option. First is the structure of nucleus. Now this is wrong because we are only talking about the absence or presence. We are not really talking about the structure of the nucleus here. Next is mode of nutrition. Yes, that is correct. Third is structure of cell wall. Here it's also wrong because we are not now talking about the structure of the cell wall. If you remember, we were talking about the composition of the cell wall. And the fourth option is asexual reproduction. And no, it's not just asexual reproduction. So hence option D will be wrong as well. So option A is wrong, option C is wrong, and option D is wrong. And we all know that we are talking about mode of nutrition as one of the bases of classification. Hence the correct answer is option B. In question number 5, we have the 5 kingdom classification suggested by R.H. Whittaker is not based on. So now we have to find out out of all of these options on which it is not based on. Let's look at all the options once again. First is presence or absence of a well-defined nucleus. Okay, so it's right, it was there. Next is mode of reproduction. Well, we are talking about mode of reproduction, although we are talking about it in the paragraph. Third is mode of nutrition, we are talking about in the table. Complexity of body organization, we are talking about it in the table. So as you can see, there is no correct answer to this question. And to be very honest with you, there is no correct answer to this question. Why? Because if it will be given in the exam with these same very options, you will get a bonus mark out of it, because all of these are, all of these are the or the basis on which the 5 kingdom classification is actually based. But even if we have to answer and give the most appropriate answer, the answer would be option B, mode of reproduction. Now you must be thinking, why is that? And the answer is because we are talking about the presence or absence of well-defined nucleus in the table. Mode of nutrition is also in the table. Complexity of body organization is also in the table. While the mode of reproduction has been mentioned in the paragraph. Although this doesn't clearly tells you that mode of reproduction is actually less important, but this is the most appropriate answer we could have given on the basis of the NCERT. But don't worry, if you actually get this kind of question, you will get a bonus mark for a question like this. Great. Now with this, we have come to the end of our video, and I'm sure that all of you have understood all the type of kingdoms from the first attempt by Aristotle to the last 6 kingdom classification.